This week on Arizona Illustrated, reflections from a survivor of the USS Arizona.
All hands on deck. Man your battle stations. This is not a drill.
Homopterus and their odd antennae.
I think these tiny creatures that we don't normally see are very charismatic, and to be honest, I find a lot of them adorable.
And the Bahidaj Harvest.
This is something that we've been doing hundreds and hundreds of years. And just like a language, if it's not being taught or it's not being done, it can die.
Welcome to Arizona Illustrated. I'm Tom McNamara. The AZPM crew and I are here at the USS Arizona Mall Memorial on the U Arizona campus. And at the heart of the memorial are 1,177 brass medallions, each one inscribed with the name of a sailor or Marine who perished aboard the USS Arizona at Pearl Harbor, December 7th, 1941. Why? We'll get to that in a few minutes, but first, an update on the coronavirus in our state. The number of new positive cases of COVID-19 in Arizona remains high. However, for the first time since mid-June, it is trending below 2,000 cases per day. And the rate of positive versus negative test results has also taken a dip. The availability of beds in hospital intensive care units also appears to be improving. The situation recently transitioned from critical to high. For more coronavirus-related information and resources to help you and your family to stay safe, visit news.azpm.org. With infection rates still high, the question of reopening the schools to in-person learning is being discussed around the nation, including here in Pima County. Arizona 360's Lauren Bruner spoke with Pima County Chief Medical Officer Francisco Garcia.
Dr. Garcia, thanks for your time today.
Happy to be with you.
What's the reality of COVID-19 cases here in Pima County?
We've had a very rough 3-4 weeks or so. Definitely the week of the 4th of July it was our high water mark in terms of the sheer number of cases. What I can also tell you, though, is that subsequent, we have been slowly going down since that time. I believe that in large measure, it is a result of the June 19th action of the board to require universal mask usage. I really think that that has been the main driver for why we've been able to see the downside of this trend.
If we are on the mend, the numbers are on the trend, headed downward, people are wearing masks, why can't students return to schools?
We are still at a level where our positivity, that is the number of tests that are coming back positive, is well in excess of approximately 9%. By the way, it was as high as 19% right before the 4th of July. You want that positivity rate to be less than 5% before you could say things in a community are relatively stable, things in the community are safe enough to bring children and other people back out of some of the mitigation strategies. From a purely disease standpoint, those little kids who get infected are likely to do fine themselves. What I worry is about their tata who is taking care of them after school. What I worry is about the janitor who is cleaning up after them in the lunchroom, about the person that's driving them to school. So we need to sort of think about this holistically. And God, being a parent, I'm the first one that wants to get my boys back into a classroom. But I also have to think about how this is going to play out in this community and whether this allows us to short circuit the track of the pandemic right now, or does it throw another monkey wrench?
But what should parents be looking out for as they start to make those decisions about school districts potentially reopening?
You know, I think one of the most important things that parents need to do is to think about the fact that whereas before there was some wiggle room in terms of, oh, my kid has a cough, but I'm going to send him to school anyway. There is absolutely no wiggle room for sending a sick kid to school. Zero, the end. Little fever, no. That child needs to stay out. If that kid has a sore throat, if that kid has respiratory symptoms, children who are not well should not be attending school.
I think many people are looking for. When do we get some sense of normalcy back in our lives?
And I think that's a challenge, right? Because all of us are exhausted. I'm exhausted. All of us are exhausted about being at home, being cooped up. All of us are starting to get a little afraid. And I guess the case that I would make is if we don't stick to this a little bit longer, I don't see a positive end in sight. If we can make this stick, for another 4 to 8 weeks, I believe that we can be in the recovery territory.
Okay, Dr. Garcia, thank you.
Thank you, Lauren.
On August 14, 1945, it was announced in the United States that Japan had surrendered unconditionally to the Allies, ending World War II. Several weeks later, on September 2nd, a formal surrender was signed aboard the USS Missouri. After nearly 4 years at war, U.S. military men and women from around the globe began to return home, including Lauren Bruner, who was aboard the USS Arizona when the war began on December 7, 1941. In December 2016, Mr. Bruner visited the U-Arizona campus.
His name is Lauren Bruner. He's a World War II Navy veteran and survivor of the attack on Pearl Harbor. He's here at the University of Arizona to help commemorate the 75th anniversary of the attack that marked day one of all-out U.S. involvement in World War II.
6 torpedoes from each of our destroyers. So there's 12 of them coming right at their fleet.
The 96-year-old is one of a handful of survivors from the battleship USS Arizona who is still alive. He's here with this group of Navy and Marine ROTC students, taking questions and sharing his story.
You got to expect it. Someday. Maybe not. I hope not.
Aaron Clayton from Spring, Texas, is a naval officer candidate pursuing his degree at the University of Arizona.
Not just read about it, not just see it on the TV, but to have history right there in front of you, talking to you, that's truly an amazing experience. He just has a ton of life still left in him, and it's just amazing knowing what he went through that day, seeing where he is in his life right now.
Thank you, sir, for everything you've taught us.
One of those heroes that you never would know about unless someone told you.
Thank you for your service. I really appreciate it. Looking forward to carrying on your legacy.
Bruner joined the Navy shortly after graduating from Alma High School, just west of Olympia, Washington. After boot camp in San Diego, he received his orders.
Here's the USS Arizona. I'd never seen anything that big get afloat. So that was quite a thing to get aboard something like that.
Arizona was granted statehood in 1912, becoming the 48th state in the Union. It also became the namesake for the USS Arizona, launched out of New York, June 19, 1915. As with all new sailors aboard a ship, he was assigned to the deck force.
You're clean and sweep and all of the decks, paintwork and all. Keep everything nice and shiny.
Several months later, another sailor would report to the USS Arizona. His best friend and high school classmate, William Mann.
So I always called him Billy. I didn't know he was even interested in coming in until one day ship pulled back down into Long Beach, California. Out on the deck cleaning up, one guy picked him on the shoulder and said, "Hey," he says, "I'm here." Looked around, here's Billy. Billy Mann. Oh, we had a great life. And we got time off. We'd go over the beach together, go around and try to find some girls. And we found lots of them.
Both men would promote into new roles. Billy Mann became a gunner's mate, Bruner a fire controlman in charge of directing the 50 caliber guns on board.
Anti-aircraft gunnery system. That was it, working with the guns, the big 14-inch guns.
During his visit to Tucson, Bruner met with student athletes at the U of A, imparting some of that bear-down spirit that coaches preach and players love to hear.
I hope you guys have one hell of a good game tomorrow.
He also made his way to Davis-Monthan Air Force Base, to visit with pilots and crew of the 47th Fighter Squadron. Pilots from the 47th shot down more than half a dozen Japanese warplanes during the Pearl Harbor attack. Here, they share war stories, past and present, finding common bonds that only those who serve can fully understand. The next night at Arizona Stadium, the U of A pays tribute to the USS Arizona and World War II veterans as the 75th anniversary of the attack on Pearl Harbor approaches. Lauren Bruner, wearing a custom-made number 75 team jersey, is honored throughout the game as the Wildcats face off with Hawaii's Rainbow Warriors.
Nice summery day, Sunday.
It was just before 8 a.m., and he was getting ready to attend church services on the ship.
After church, I had a date to meet a little gal over on the beach. Her name was Nikki. Never got to see her.
The USS Arizona's loudspeaker came on.
All hands on deck. Man your battle stations. This is not a drill.
The surprise attack came in two waves, bombing grounded U.S. planes at airfields around Pearl Harbor and the U.S. fleet in Battleship Row. Bruner had reached the fourth deck and had one more to go.
Well, I looked up the channel, and I could see these planes coming in. They were coming in shooting, and there was just ammunition coming all over the place.
He was shot twice in the leg by machine gun fire from a Japanese fighter.
One big dive, and I made that 5-foot entry right into my battle station.
The enemy had struck, and he was close.
And he just closed up sideways, swung around the front of the ship, between the ships. Big old grin on his face, mouth wide open. I could see all those teeth. You want to reach out and bust him one. But then all heck broke loose after that.
Japanese bombers hit the Arizona 4 times with their bombs.
And one of the bombs hit the number 2 turret, which is under my feet and about 20 feet ahead of it.
That 1,700-pound bomb glanced off the turret and dove 3 decks below, into the forward powder magazine on the starboard side of the ship.
Which, unfortunately, was where my buddy, Billy Mann, that was his station. It just blew the heck out of everything, lifted that whole bow, they say about 30 feet off of the water. It had one hell of a fire.
Moored on the port side of the Arizona was a repair ship, the USS Vestal. Crew from the Vestal threw a rope to a position on the forward mast, where Bruner and 5 shipmates were stranded.
And we tied that to it, and there were 6 people across that line.
Lauren Bruner was the second to the last to leave the USS Arizona. Shot by enemy fire and burned over 70% of his body, he crossed that line hand over hand nearly 100 feet, charred and bloodied, but undefeated. 2,335 military personnel died at Pearl Harbor. 1,177 sailors and Marines were killed on the USS Arizona. Lauren Bruner was awarded the Purple Heart, and after recovering from his wounds, he reported to the USS Coghlan, fighting in 8 more major battles.
It's got to be known to the younger ones. You have to remember who was there, their fellow men, some of who got through okay, but who were brave enough to stick around and finish it out.
You can read more about this American hero in a new book by Ed McGrath and Craig Thompson. It's available online at ussaz.org.
Lauren Bruner passed away in September 2019 and was laid to rest among his USS Arizona shipmates at Pearl Harbor National Memorial December 7th of that year. Most people do not like insects and they avoid them at all costs. Not Angela Hoover. When we first met Angela, she was a University of Arizona master's graduate student with a scientific and personal fascination with a parasitic beetle. Here is Homopterus and their odd antennae.
Hello, my name is Angela Hoover, and I'm a master's graduate student at the University of Arizona, and I study entomology. When I first came to the University of Arizona, I was a little bit unsure about what project I'd be working on for my graduate studies, and I, by chance, came upon this group called Hemopterus and their very strange antennal shape. I was immediately drawn to just how peculiar they look. They're very fern-shaped antennae, and you don't normally see that in beetles. So I was curious as to why this possibly evolved and how these beetles were using this adaptation in the environment. These beetles are actually parasites on ants. So what they'll do is they'll wander as adults through the arboreal canopies in the jungle, and ants will find them and actually drag them back to their nests. And the research kind of suggests at the moment that the beetles smell like ants and perhaps mimic their acoustic cues. So the ants believe that either these beetles are ants or through other chemical means are very pleasant and they attract them. So the ants will drag the beetles back to their nests. And once the beetles are inside, they'll lay their eggs inside the ants' brood chambers. And when these baby beetles hatch, they eat the ants' young. And the ants don't really quite care about it. And we think it's because of the chemical and acoustic cues. It tricks them. I think these tiny creatures that we don't normally see are very charismatic, and to be honest, I find a lot of them adorable. There's a lot that we don't think about and we don't see, especially as far as beetles taking care of their young or trying to make it in the world and not be parasitized. And I think that there are definitely a lot of parallels that could be drawn between our lives and insects trying to make it in the world if we just get past the fact that they're a little creepy and crawly and have a couple more legs than we do.
Angela Hoover is now a senior lab coordinator and online instructor with UArizona's College of Science. For newcomers to southern Arizona, this region may seem dry and lifeless, but as you'll see in this story, a deep and life-sustaining native tradition reveals the beauty and the bounty of the Sonoran Desert.
This is paradise. This is a beautiful place, and with the high temperatures, people get real frustrated with that, but embrace the heat because the saguaro doesn't prosper without the high heat. The saguaro shows us about our own resilience. It shows us how we can survive.
Okay. All right, so should we go through that and that, or do you wherever you guys say? I think.
The Bahidaj needs very hot sun. So if the weather is not that hot, that doesn't help with the process of ripening. It's a new year, new beginning for our tribe.
This starts the harvesting calendar for us. You give a blessing to start your harvest. You're thankful, you appreciate your Creator. We are always taught you open the fruit, you put it on your heart, you put it on your head, and you just say thank you for the fruit, for this harvest. You're starting off with that harvest that way. I've been coming out here since I was about 7 years old. And I came out the first time with my mom. She brought me out. She was coming out to help pick, and of course I was too young at that time, so she left me here with my grandma Juana. I didn't want to stay. I wanted to go with her, so I kind of cried. And then she went off picking, and I helped my grandma Juana around here, and she was processing. She was doing some baskets at the time. My mom showed up later, and I calmed down, and that was the beginning of me learning a lot about the harvest.
You can see from far away sometimes. Once your eyes are real accustomed to knowing how the crown looks, you can tell which ones are open, you can tell which ones are not open yet.
Wow, that one has a lot. It's not about taking a lot or trying to pick every saguaro. There are some saguaros that we never get to pick, and that's totally fine. We just take as much as needed and try and give back as much as we can to them.
Every Hashan is like family, you know. Some are partnered for life and some have many families. You'll see a young one right next to one that's going down and becoming one with the earth again.
As O'odham people, we've always looked at the saguaros as people. They're humans. So they represent families and our family.
I remember when I was younger, I had a friend and she used to tell her secrets to the Hashan. Just to have something to confide in, she would go to the Hashan and she would talk to it and tell her secrets. It's very sacred to us. We have great respect for them. When you're the bucket holder, yeah, you get hit in the head, you get hit in the face, you know. Okay, you're walking around with seeds in your face. Yes. I was told that my grandma Juana was able to catch with one hand and pick with the other.
Oops, sorry, Maria. Okay.
What we use is a kuipa. It's usually put together by wire, and that's done before the harvest starts.
Oh, that one.
If it's red and it's closed, we'll take that knife and we'll open it.
You leave the pods face up, so they're asking Creator to bring rain, and you leave those pods next to the saguaro. That's to say thank you. Thank you for the fruit.
Even while I'm picking, thank you. I say thank you for giving to my family. Thank you for being here. That's what I'm taught. That's what my family has taught me is to honor the Hashan like that.
Last year was the first year I was out here without my mom. I was a little scared, a little nervous, but once I got here, I realized, no, we've been doing this for so long. The family was here. I just had a lot of support and a lot of help, and I felt very sturdy. I felt very strong and grounded.
2 saguaros and we got almost half a bucket.
She loved being out here. People looked up to her and they sought after her knowledge. So just being her daughter, I appreciated that.
They probably wonder, why is Mom doing this, you know, out there in the heat all the time for 3 weeks? But it plays a big role in our lives because this is our home. We were raised here.
I called her Mom. In O'odham, it's Ju'a. And when she was really being fussy, I call her Stella. She didn't like that, though. We have a gentleman who rode by on a motorcycle, and you'd hear him, he'd say, Stella! He'd drive by. And his name was Bobby Jack. She'd go, Bobby Jack! And then he's driving by. So yes, everybody said that name.
My Aunt Stella and I were out, and I just remember her and I were harvesting this Hashan, and we're there, and all of a sudden she says, run! And I said, what? She saw the bees, and all these bees came out of this tree, and we were running and we ran as far as we could. But you know, it was scary at the time. It was funny afterwards. They didn't chase us, but yeah. I feel her all the time, and I know she's around, and I know she's watching us. You know, she told us, I want you and Tanisha to continue to do this. As she got older and she wasn't well, she said it more. And I always tell Tanisha, if we're not out here, I'm scared because she'll probably come and, and hunt us down and say, you know, remember what I told you? You need to be out there.
Having the fresh fruit when you're out there, you know, it's seasonal. You don't get that throughout the year. And just to open that first fruit and taste it, still tastes the same, all the juice, you know, the seeds. Yeah, so I think that's my favorite part of it.
We make syrup and jam for our families.
That should be enough water.
Yeah, it should be good. I love the color. The Bahidaj has such a beautiful color. When it's cooking, I love the smell. Sometimes when you look at it, you can see that purplish, and then sometimes you see that dark, real red. It's very beautiful.
You can put it on pancakes, ice cream. I've seen it on goat cheese. It's got a very smoky flavor to it, and that's from the mesquite that we cook it over.
This is something that we've been doing hundreds and hundreds of years. And just like a language, it dies when you don't speak it. This is the same thing. This is a tradition. And if it's not being taught or it's not being done, it also can die.
Just as my mom taught us, because she was going to get old one day and she wasn't going to be able to harvest. She wanted us to know so we could continue and also pick for her and continue to cook the syrup. You know, one day we'll be elders and we won't be able to pick. And there'll be the young ones here to pick for us.
Next week on Arizona Illustrated, we present Stories of the Monsoon. Here's a sneak peek.
The thing that I like is it's a visual representation of energy. Energy controls so much in this world. You know, everything's fueled by energy. And it's just really interesting that lightning, you know, kind of like paints a photograph of what energy looks like.
Thank you for joining us here on Arizona Illustrated. I'm Tom McNamara. Stay safe. We'll see you next week.